Imagine setting out on a journey to discover the deepest corners of your psyche, hoping to uncover the hidden, repressed, or denied parts of yourself. This is what Carl Jung's concept of shadow work promises: the possibility of integrating these hidden parts into your conscious awareness, thus achieving a sense of wholeness. However, for all its appeal, Jung's method can quickly become a treacherous terrain, one that offers little guidance about what to do once you've plunged into the darkness of your unconscious. The promise of transformation, while alluring, often leaves practitioners wondering, what now? In theory, the process of confronting your shadow is straightforward. You must face the parts of yourself that you have suppressed, whether they're unconscious desires, behaviors, or even traumas you've buried over the years. But what happens when you start confronting these darker elements? The problem isn't in recognizing them, it's in knowing what to do with them once they've come into view. Jung himself did not provide a concrete roadmap for this integration. This lack of direction creates a psychological void, a sense of being stuck in the confrontation itself with no clear steps forward. Let's break down why this becomes such an issue. When you begin shadow work, it's common to start with introspection, looking at your behaviors, reactions, and emotions that seem disproportionate or out of place. You may ask yourself questions like, why do I act out in anger when triggered? Or what is it about this person that brings out my insecurities? These are the starting points, small fissures in the surface of your psyche that open up to deeper insights. But once you identify these hidden patterns, the process becomes murkier. For example, you might unearth a deep-seated fear of inadequacy, something buried so far within your unconscious that you never knew it was there. Confronting it means acknowledging that this fear has shaped many of your life decisions, whether you're aware of it or not. You see it, you feel it. But what now? Jung proposed that once you bring something into consciousness, the next step is to integrate it, accept it, and recognize it as part of you. But this is where his framework falls short. The idea of simply acknowledging the shadow without clear guidance on how to integrate it leaves a vast gray area. Does accepting this fear mean continuing to live as if it has no effect on your behavior? Does it mean confronting it head-on and pushing through your anxieties in a process of self-overcoming? Jung never fully fleshed out the practical steps for integrating such experiences. He spoke of integration as an ongoing process, but did not provide clear instructions for navigating the deep, tangled emotions and experiences that would emerge in the process. Furthermore, shadow work often brings up contradictory emotions. Confronting the fear of inadequacy, for example, might lead to the discovery of anger or resentment toward past figures who contributed to this feeling. These emotions, too, are part of the shadow, yet they don't necessarily fit neatly into a healthy integration. At times, acknowledging these feelings can trigger a surge of confusion as the mind struggles to reconcile these newfound aspects of the self with the person you thought you were. You might even begin to question whether these shadow elements are truly yours to integrate, or if they belong to someone else's projections, especially if these patterns are rooted in early childhood or societal conditioning. But the uncertainty doesn't end there. Jung's concept of shadow work presupposes that once you recognize a negative trait, you can learn to accept it as part of your whole being. Yet what happens when this trait seems to be inherently destructive, such as violent tendencies, narcissism, or even perverse desires? Jung suggested that the shadow is composed of repressed desires, yet he didn't offer a clear system for what happens when these desires, once unearthed, pose a moral, social, or psychological risk. Is the goal to embrace these darker traits and find ways to channel them, or is it to purge them entirely? The danger here is that without a guide to help discern the difference between healthy integration and destructive indulgence, one can easily fall into the trap of simply rationalizing every dark impulse as a part of their genuine self. This can lead to self-justification of unhealthy behaviors, or worse, an increasing sense of fragmentation, as different parts of yourself pull in opposing directions. The most unsettling aspect of shadow work, perhaps, is the sheer unpredictability of what might emerge once you start uncovering the unconscious. Shadow work can dig into the recesses of past trauma, unresolved grief, or psychological wounds that have been buried for years. Yet Jung didn't fully address the potential psychological fallout of these discoveries. Uncovering repressed memories or deep trauma might awaken painful emotional responses that could overwhelm the individual, leaving them lost or even regressive. Jung's theory lacked a robust framework for emotional resilience in the face of these intense revelations. What should a person do when their integration of the shadow brings them face to face with repressed memories of abuse, guilt, or shame? In essence, the process of shadow work, according to Jung, relies heavily on the individual's ability to navigate these complex, often painful emotional terrains with little to no external guidance. Jung wrote about the importance of guidance from a therapist or spiritual mentor, but the practice itself, diving into the unconscious, can still feel like stumbling in the dark without a lantern. There's no clear instruction manual on how to integrate or transform what emerges from this deep dive. And as a result, the person engaged in shadow work may feel like they are simply wading through a fog without a destination in sight. It's not that Jung's concept of shadow work lacks merit. On the contrary, confronting one's unconscious material can be a transformative experience. However, by failing to provide a clear roadmap or step-by-step methodology for integration, Jung left practitioners with the dangerous task of piecing together their shadow work as they went along. This lack of clarity creates a psychological paradox. In searching for wholeness, the individual risks becoming lost in the process itself, stuck in the labyrinth of their unconscious, without any real way of knowing which thread will lead them back to light.